In reference to the final expense industry, then I'll tell you something about myself, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, you're going to find it, and I'm going to assume that many of you are new at this. I'm a little over my 15th year in final expense. You will find this so rewarding. When I speak at conferences and agencies across the country, and I even do one-on-one training for people who are already in the insurance industry, they have come back and said, yes, I've done estate planning, I've done mutual funds, I've done IRAs, and nothing is more rewarding than sitting across a kitchen table and helping Grandma and Grandpa with their little burial plans. You're going to feel that, you're going to see that, you're going to experience that as you pursue this niche of final expense. Everybody hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Overall, okay, thank you. All right.
Yes.
Now, my background, by the way, and I'm sure some of you are coming from this, from various industries too. By the way, the average age of a person going into the insurance industry is around 33. So some of you may be younger, most of you may be older. And what a great time to get into the insurance industry. People of all ages, survey says over and over again, are underinsured. The first type of insurance that, of course, people 40 and under ought to have is just good old basic life insurance to replace their income. But the fastest growing market in the industry is burial insurance. And there's several reasons why, ladies and gentlemen. Number one is called the grain of America. You know, people who are over 60 or over 65, that group is growing leaps and bounds. I've got a lot of gray hair, if you saw the picture on the website, and I'm only 58. Number two, the next group is called the age wave, like a wave at the ocean. It's all the baby boomers like me coming into this next generation of the grain of America. What an opportunity to sell. The second most important policy out there for people is burial insurance. As I said, the most important are people 50 and under is income replacement. But we're talking about burial insurance. So we have the second group coming along. Now we have another great niche out there, and that is people coming from other countries, the immigration to America. They're here, they're trying to better their lives, and many of the younger people eventually want to bring their parents from the old country over to here. Now, they have that situation in which the high cost of burial. And then, of course, the latter part is the cost of funerals, cemetery plots, etc. Something I'm going to cover a little later this morning is you want to get yourself educated of the burial cost and cemetery in your local area. Because the number one reason why people buy burial insurance, even though we call it final expense, is to cover that cost. And it is growing in prices through the years. In fact, an easy sell will be for you is when someone has recently passed away, let's say it's a mom or a dad or an aunt or uncle, brother and sister, and they went into the local funeral home, and unfortunately some of you have even had that experience too, I understand. My mother's been gone for years, my father's not doing well, and they realize just how expensive it is. Now they're open to the idea of listening to you and what you have as a solution for burial plans. So, the industry is growing because of the ages of people, the older market, the baby boomer market, the immigration market, and the high cost of burial plans and cemetery. That does include cremation. I'll get to that in a little bit later. But also, there's fewer agents out there. I have really no competition when I'm out there as I was yesterday, as I will be today, when I'm out there knocking on doors and helping families. You are not going to come across no more, and I'm stretching here, 2 or 3 other people in your area doing final expense. Why? First of all, most people, sad to say, don't have a good work ethic. This is an easy niche. It's an easy process. It's a simple sell, but people want to complicate it. And I'll discuss that more in a little bit. But we have fewer agents. When I used to go to various insurance meetings and all, there may have been 100 agents there. Now I'm lucky to count 25. And yet I have a growing market out there. How much better can it get? I have a bigger market and less competition. So good for all of you that are looking into final expense and you're into final expense. So I got licensed in 1986. The first 10 years, I was with one of the big mass mutual companies where you were trained to do everything and be everything to everybody. And after 10 years of being totally frustrated, I realized this isn't for me. I'm better with one simple product, one simple market, sitting across the kitchen table. I don't belong behind an executive desk or in front of a group of board of directors convincing them about an insurance plan. My parents are hillbillies from Kentucky, and I came out here in California when I was in the Air Force, and I've just stayed out here. So I was about ready to leave the industry. I was just fed up with it, and in the meantime, I was working at a funeral home part-time out in Riverside, California, and I got my funeral director's license, and I enjoyed that, meeting with families, helping them with their arrangements, but I missed sitting across the kitchen table, helping people with some form of pre-planning using insurance. So when I was about ready to leave the industry, I thought, well, let me look into these little burial policies called final expense. I answered an ad in a paper, I responded, and the rest is history for the last 15 years. It provides a perfect lifestyle if a person wants to be independent, make a nice income. You're not going to become a millionaire per se. Make a nice income and have no expenses and be your own boss, helping people during the day. And these are nice, sweet people. I helped 3 people yesterday. And one lady lost her husband in February. She couldn't believe the cost of the funeral home, so she was very open to the idea of a little burial plan. I think that was like a $7,000 or $10,000 policy. That was my last one for the day yesterday. Then, so that was 15 years ago I started, and I looked into final expense. I've been at it ever since, and I haven't looked back. Now, before I go on, I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of working leads, the presentation, what to do at the door. Any questions so far? And the dumbest question is one that's not asked. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
None right now.
None? All right. All right, let's talk about 2 important factors. One is leads. And by the way, Lincoln Heritage is a fine company. I've referred a lot of people to them through the years. I've been to their facility there in Phoenix. The most important factor in the final expense, number 1 is, of course, is a quality carrier, and you have that with Lincoln Heritage. What I mean by a quality carrier, any good rating, A or better. Secondly, good old simple whole life insurance. Occasionally, a carrier will come out with term final expense. I will never provide that to a client because you're talking to wonderful middle to low-income seniors. Sometimes they don't balance their checking account properly, and all you need is grandma to put into her plan for 8 years, 7 years, and she misses a payment for whatever reason. So I only provide traditional whole life, the one that has the non-forfeiture features like waiver premium, cash value, and so forth. So you want a quality carrier like Lincoln Heritage. Number 2, you want to be able to get it approved. I don't care if I'm at a 20% commission rate or an 80%. I want my client to get covered as soon as possible. And like Lincoln Heritage, you have both simplified issue whole life and you have some guaranteed issue whole life. So you want to make sure they get approved as soon as possible. As soon as possible meaning hopefully within 7 to 10 business days. I'm not concerned about the commissions. I'm concerned about helping that senior citizen. There's a saying that I may suggest you write down. Remember, it's compassion, not commissions. If you're looking for this industry for the nice big fat commissions, go somewhere else. You're out there helping your grandmas and grandpas out there, and you need to, and that compassion needs to come across. And once you've had your first or second death claim, probably within 6 months you get started with final expense, you're going to see how rewarding that is. These people are going to thank you. They're going to invite you to the funeral. They're going to invite you overwards afterwards to their house, and they're going to often say, this nice funeral and ceremony to commemorate and to celebrate my loved one's life wouldn't have been possible except this man or this woman right here coming to our door one day. So, whole life policy, quick issue, approved issue, and as many of you know, it's either done via the phone nowadays with a telephone interview while you're in the home, or they'll do a quick APS once they get the application, and the policy will be issued. So those are the two requirements: qualified carrier and also the quick issue. Now the third thing is leads. Your only two expenses in this niche, and which is nice to only have two. One will be your lead cost. You will have to invest in your business. So I know that Lincoln Heritage has a good lead program. Whatever else leads you develop with your own direct mail, you need to spend money on leads. Visualize, use the concept that each lead you get back represents $100. I know that when I get 30 leads, I know when I get 10 leads, there's $3,000 of premium in there. I don't know whether it's lead number 1 or lead number 10. But each lead I get is a little gold bar that represents $100. So, out of 10 leads, I know I should do $3,000 worth of annual premium. But again, I don't know if it will be the 8th lead, the 10th lead, or the 4th lead. So there I have to work the numbers, and I'll explain that more in a moment. But one of the two investments that you should only have in this special niche is your lead cost, which is a wonderful tax deduction, by the way, and your use of a little, what I call putt-putt used car. I have 2 cars. I have a nice, comfortable car for the evenings and weekends for personal use, but I drive a 10-year-old Toyota when I'm out there calling on people's homes. So, of course, you'll have mileage on your car and maintenance. By the way, just this week the IRS raised the mileage to 55 cents a mile. So you'll have a huge deduction, on the use of your car. By the way, most qualified tax preparers will tell you, even though you don't use, let's say, 30,000 miles on the car for business, the IRS allows you around 30,000 miles if you are an outside, quote, independent sales rep. So use what the IRS is going to give you. That is a huge deduction off your taxes, about $12,000 to $15,000 if you use that 30,000 rule. If you get above that, it may cause a red flag. But as long as the IRS allows you to use it, use it. So those are your two expenses. You've got to invest in leads, and it's amazing how many new agents and final expense bellyache about that. You've got to spend money on leads and on a little used car to go around to make these sales calls. Any questions at this time? Are we still out there?
Yeah, we are.
All right. Maybe I put some people asleep, David. All right. Now, leads. Good news about final expense leads. They have, ladies and gentlemen, an incredible shelf life. I am still calling on leads 10 to 15 years ago. When you get a lead, you keep it, make a copy of it, put it in a zip code file. Unless those people have died, have moved, or unlikely bought from someone else because there's no competition out there, you still have a shot. Sometimes I will call on a lead that maybe was 10 years ago, and for whatever reason, nothing was done. You're not going to sell them all. If you sell them all, then you're not seeing enough people. So, if I call on that person for whatever reason they weren't ready, then I'll put it back into my lead file box by zip code. I'll explain the lead management in a moment. However, when I'm in that area again, let's say I'm on Maple Street, and I have a new lead on Maple Street, but I know from my zip code file box, I have another lead on Maple Street I called on years before. I'll knock on that door. Maybe, because of 8 or 10 years has passed, something has happened to that person's health. Now they're more receptive to, we ought to look into this. Maybe they've been to a funeral recently of one of their friends or family members. Maybe they've had a scare. Maybe they've also realized, hey, it could happen to anyone, like those poor people on that Amtrak train last Friday in Nevada where a truck ran into the train. Those poor people. So things change with people as they get older, and they become a little more mellower, and they become a little more aware of mortality. Now, often they'll say the same thing. Oh, I don't remember me seeing you 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And I'll say a few things to kind of rekindle their memory, and I'll have another shot. And I don't know of another industry, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know of anything else in the insurance industry that has a shelf life like final expense leads. Health insurance doesn't. Traditional life insurance doesn't. IRAs don't. They all have to do things by certain times. But in final expense, you have incredible shelf life. So when you purchase these leads, you hang on to them. So again, unless they died or moved or they bought for someone else, you still have a shot. I'm still making sales of leads that I've accumulated through the years ago. Now, lead management. When you get the leads, now there's a couple things you can do. Some people will say, I only want to work brand new leads. Well, good news here, ladies and gentlemen. These people, as some of you have already experienced, they don't remember sending it in last week. In fact, you have to rekindle their memory why they sent it in. I'll explain that more in a moment. So when I get the leads, I sort it out by area that I'm going to work, and I usually use a 5-digit zip code. I live here in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. So we'll use this area as an example. Some of you may know the area or you'll know the names that I'll mention. Let's say I get leads for Reseda, and there may be 3 zip codes for Reseda. I'll put those leads in the zip codes for that area, and I'll work that area that week with those leads. Then maybe a week later I get leads for possibly Panorama City. I'll work that area. And then let's say a couple months go by and I get now another batch of leads back to Reseda. I'll go back to Reseda, work the leads that I just got, but including the old leads that I haven't been able to connect them at home. So I have additional leads. Let's say a few months later I'm working down in LA, let's say in the Paramount, North Long Beach, Downey, and Norwalk area. I'll do the same. I'll put those zip codes together by area, and I'll go out and knock on those doors with those leads in hand. So I categorize my leads not so much by timing. Of course, if they did just come in, that's okay, but by the area I'm working that week. Yesterday, I worked up in the Palmdale, Lancaster area, and I'll be working up there the next couple of days. So I'm using zip codes in that area. The nice thing about final expense too, ladies and gentlemen, you once you get comfortable with this, you could drop a final expense agent in any part of the country, and if they're working the right neighborhoods, they'll make sales. When I go to Phoenix to visit my grandchildren, I'll run some leads and work in that area. So I'll do the direct mail during the day, make my sales calls, make some sales. For some of you in Phoenix, that may be Maricopa, that may be Ahwatukee, that might be Goodyear, that may be Apache Junction. I'll run some leads there and then visit with my grandchildren at night. So A, I got to see my grandchildren and my daughters. B, I got to write off the trip. And C, I made money at the same time. Because this should be a one-stop sell. So to summarize lead management, because you can see easily I could talk all day about this. To summarize lead management, I would suggest that works for me and for others experienced final expense people, categorize them by zip codes, constantly order leads, and with these leads, keep them as long as you can because they will continue to be fresh. Now, how do you make an old lead a new lead when you walk up to the door? First of all, let's talk about walk-ups, and then I'll talk about how to. I do not make phone calls when I'm out selling. So I don't care when the leads come to me whether there's a phone number or not. In fact, when I purchase my own leads from direct mail houses, and I know that Lincoln Heritage allows that too. They have their own direct mail program, very effective. But there are plenty of direct mail houses out there that you can order your own leads. They run currently around $400 a thousand mailers. So if I get back, 1%, 2%, it'll pay for the lead cost, and I'll make more money off of that. So you got to invest money. Leads is not an expense; it's an investment. Now, when I get these leads, I categorize them by zip code, and I plan out my day. My goal is to make 10 stops a day or 50 stops a week. So let's say I'm working one particular area, and I've got, let's use an example, let's say I've got 25 leads for that area. Now, and by the way, speaking of area, you heard me say I was in the Antelope Valley yesterday, and I will be the rest of this week. Don't let it bother you if you got to drive an hour or two. Some people will say, well, Alan, you live in L.A., you have a gold mine. I still drive an hour one way or another way. And there are some final expense agents, ladies and gentlemen, particularly out in the Midwest, where they handle 3 or 4 states at a time. I know some that live in Missouri. They have a license for Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois. And they'll even leave on a Monday morning and get a room, and they've had their week planned out, and they'll just work in that area, and they'll stay in the hotel there until Friday morning, then they'll drive back, or Friday afternoon. I know of a couple agents who make well over a couple $100,000 a year, and they handle 3 or 4 states at a time. So if you got to drive an hour or two to go where the ships are at, where's the old saying, where do you want to find the ships? You got to go where they're at to the sea. So you've got to go where the leads are at. And I know some of you are in the Central Valley, so you may need to go to Delano, Shafter, Taft, Porterville, Selma, Hanford, but that comes with the territory. Now, when I get the leads, I categorize where I'm at. So I'm going to work in one area, and I got 25 leads. I know out of 25 leads in that area for the week, I know around 10 of them, I will not catch them at home. However, those 10 leads, ladies and gentlemen, are going back into my tickler box for that zip code when I'm in that area again. So I still got 10 leads that haven't been worked. Now I got 15 leads left. I'm still working. Out of 15, around 12 of them will let me in the home. And I know out of 12, I'm going to sell 6 to 9 of them. There's no reason why, if you're working the leads and you have the leads and you're investing in your career, that you shouldn't be doing 3 to 5 to 8 policies a week. Again, 25 leads, 10 I can't get to. They're not home. No one's there whatsoever. 15 left. 3 of them tell me to go to you-know-where. 12 of them, I'm able to get into the home. Out of 12, I know 6 of them are going to have an interest in purchasing. Out of those 6 homes that do purchase, 1 out of 2 will be 2 sales. So I got 6 homes, so I've got 3 of them are buying 2 policies, husband and wife, and 3 of them are individuals, widows and widowers. It is a numbers game. And one thing, ladies and gentlemen, please respect. It's a law called the large of large numbers. When I've seen people go into final expense, they'll say, "Oh, I made 2 presentations this week," or "I made 5 stops." You need to make 50 stops a week, 10 a day, and the numbers will filter down automatically. Let's talk about stops for a moment. Many of you may not be aware of this, but in a city, the average UPS driver makes 100 to 150 stops a day. When I asked my UPS driver that, I couldn't believe it, so I asked a couple others in the area, and that was their response. Now, of course, the country won't be as much because you got a lot more driving. But imagine 100 stops a day. That's 500 in a week. I'm suggesting to you to have a wonderful career, 10 stops a day. Now, if you make 10 stops a day, one day you might make 20 stops and no one's home, or only a few people, and you're not into any home at all. But the next day you make 3 stops only, but you're in all 3 homes and you made 3 sales. So at the end of the week, you made 50 stops. Now let me define the stop and what I mean by 50 stops and 25 leads. A stop is where I pulled up in front of the house, never park in the driveway. All you need is for your car not to start or something. So park out in front of the house, maybe even 1 house down. Park out in front, get out of your car, and go up and knock on the door. Now, that is still not a stop until I leave some correspondence. 3 things are going to happen. Number 1, they're not home. I will leave a note. Just use a yellow pad of paper or design a note. Sorry, I missed you. I'm here to give you information about information you requested. I will try again tomorrow between 10 and 12. Sincerely, Alan Benedict. Again, let me repeat that because I know many of you are taking notes, and good for you. Sorry, I missed you. I was here today Tuesday at 11 o'clock. I have the information you requested. I'll try again tomorrow between 10 and 12, or whatever time you want to use, ladies and gentlemen. Always go only the next day. This business is a daily and a weekly business. It's not like some insurance programs where it's a 3-month to make a sale. It's a daily and the next day business. And now you left a note. Now that is considered as a stop to me, because when they get home, they're going to see that note. Also, if your lead gives them the age, write down the age. And let's say it's Mr. and Mrs. Jones. Mr. Jones, 71. Mrs. Jones, 66. Here's a little creative trick, though, ladies and gentlemen. If she's 66, always make her 5 years younger. So write down 61. And you know what's going to happen. She's going to say to her husband, I don't know who this person is, but they made me younger. I must stay to find out who that person is. Just a little creativity. Whatever the wife is, make her 5 years younger on your piece of paper you're writing down. Because you do want them to be there the next day when you arrive. Now, many of them won't be. They still won't be there. They've got doctor's appointments. They've got grandkids. But you do have about a 25% chance of them being there. So I count that as a stop. So when I get back to my card, I have a little piece of paper. I keep score, and I write that down as a stop. What's the scenario number 2? Remember I said there's 3 scenarios. Scenario number 2, somebody is home, but not the person you want to see. Maybe it's the wife, but not the husband. Or the husband, not the wife. Maybe the daughter's there, but not the parents. So I just say, no problem. I'll try again tomorrow between 10 and 12, and I'll leave another piece of paper. Tell them I have the information they requested. I'll stop by again tomorrow. Now, they're going to give that to the other person. Or what if it is one of the spouses? I have the information that you asked about little burial plans. Only takes a few minutes, but I'm only allowed to talk to both of you at the same time. Because you know, Mrs. Jones, the other spouse can die before the other one. Only takes a few minutes. I'll try tomorrow. Is between 10 and 12 okay, or between 2 and 4? Again, I'm going to get into those 12 homes left. Remember, I got 15 leads. I had 25. 10 are not a home at all. I left a note, though. Never leave your phone number, though, because they will call you and say, don't show up. Don't leave your phone number. So 10 of them aren't no home. 3 of them, 15 left. 3 of them say, we're not interested. Go away. We just shot the last salesman, and you're the next one. So don't leave anything. Just leave kindly and gracefully. Hang on to that lead card, though, because guess what? The next final expense person that calls on them, which there won't be, they said the same thing, and that final expense salesperson won't follow up because they got intimidated. You put that lead card back in your box and let it marinate for a couple of years. Make a note on the back of it. Let it marinate. And maybe the guy had a little minor health problem in the meantime that now they're a little more receptive. So I got the 12 homes left. So, second scenario, one spouse is home, but the other one's not. No problem, I'll try again tomorrow. And then, of course, the third and the best scenario, they're both home. Here's what I say at the door. Then I'll ask for some questions if there are in just a second. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I have the information you requested about a little burial plan. It just takes me a few minutes to give you a free quote, and I'll be on my way. Show them the lead card with their name on it. I know with Lincoln Heritage, they fill out a card and they write or print their name. Let them see their own handwriting. When I walk up to the door, ladies and gentlemen, I dress down. Casual pants, a sport collar, open collar shirt, my presentation notebook, like you would use in high school, and a clipboard on top of my presentation book with a stack of my lead cards. No tie, no fancy dress, ladies. In fact, ladies, I would suggest pantsuits. No ties, no dresses, dress down, and presentation book, clipboard with your leads rubber band attached to the clipboard. No attachés at all. I want them to feel almost like I'm the UPS driver stopping by to make a delivery. Dress down. Sometimes, even when I'm working in the desert, as in Palmdale, Lancaster, during the summer, I'll even wear shorts. It gets so hot up there. Dress down. All you want them to be able to do is let you in to get a free quote. Once again, at the door, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I have the information you requested about little burial plans. I don't use the word life insurance. It takes me just a few minutes to give you a quote, and I'll let them see and even hold the stack of cards that are rubber band with their card on top. As you can see, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I have a lot of other people to see too. Only takes a few moments. That, out of the 15 cards I have left, remember 10 are at home, 3 blew me off the door. Out of those 12, I'll get in those homes. Questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes, I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to know. You mentioned that you never call people or send any mail. What is the reason that you don't call people? If you have their
All right. Good question, and thank you, sir. Okay. I don't call for several reasons. Number one, what is the purpose of a phone call anyways? Is to get an appointment. Well, they're going to blow me off the phone. Yeah, if I had 25 leads, I know that I may be able to get into 1 or 2 homes if I call, but I would have got into their homes anyways. So, number one, I don't call because I'm going to have a larger, I'm not interested, I don't remember sending the card in, never call me again. So that's one reason I don't call. Another reason I don't call is, we're humans too, us as representatives, and the hardest door to go through is to go out of our own door. Most agents, being human, if they get on the phones around 9 in the morning and it's 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, most of them lack the self-motivation to say, okay, now I got to go out and talk to these people. For me, I need to get out of my own door to get myself going. There's an old saying, showing up is half done. I need to just show up. For those out there who have read my article in the May edition of Life Insurance Selling, by the way, that's a free magazine. 2 magazines you should be getting, and they're both free. And you can subscribe online. One is called Life Insurance Selling, and of course their website is lifeinsuranceselling.com. That's a free magazine. And the other one is called Senior Market Advisor. Again, Senior Market Advisor. Both of those publications are free. And the Senior Market Advisor talks about working with seniors. And, of course, Life Insurance Selling talks about working with seniors and other markets, but with life insurance products. If you go to the Life Insurance Selling website, and on the May edition is my article, and the article that I wrote this year, one of the points I made is you've got to show up. I call it drive-by selling. We all know the term of drive-by shooting. I call it drive-by selling. Or when I was in high school, when I played football, there's an old football play called bump and run. I want to bump and run. I want to catch them at home, see if I can help them, and then move on. So I don't call at all. Not only that, the purpose at the door is to build a relationship. It may be a short relationship, and maybe I catch both of them at home, but they can't see me right now. I've dressed down. I'm casual. I'm saying I just got some information to give you that you requested. They'll say, well, we're not interested right now. We're busy. I downplay it. No problem. I understand. I have all these other people to see. I'll try again tomorrow between 10 and 12 or 2 and 4. And if they say, well, I don't know, no problem. If you're home tomorrow, fine. If not, I'll try again. So I just want to be able to do a nice, simple, at the door, general, friendly visit and build a relationship. But that's why I don't use the phone. They'll shoot me down over the phone. It may be, some people say, well, it's more effective. No, they'll say it's more efficient. It may be more efficient, but it's not more effective. This business, and I'll get these emails from people across the country, can I sell this via the phone? And there are final expense companies out there, the big mega companies. I think one of them is Globe Life. They do it by phone. But ladies and gentlemen, they got the budget to do it. When you're out there as an independent business person, you don't have that kind of budget. They may call 200 people a day. You just want to call on 10. So stopping by and seeing the people will be more effective, and you'll make a much better return on your time and your effort. Now, going back to the stop. So, again, the 3 scenarios, they're not at home, one person's at home, they're both at home. Even when I go in and do a presentation and they're not ready to purchase or for whatever excuse they gave me, I go out to my car and I count that as a stop. You notice, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not counting premium. I'm not counting commissions. I'm not counting sales. All I want to do is control my activity. I can't control the outcome. I can control my activity. If I'm making my 50 stops a week, I know what eventually the results will be. Now, I'm saying 50 stops. Remember, I got 25 lead cards. I'm using that as my example. I'm going to try to hit those people twice in 1 week. So one day, for instance, yesterday, 2 people weren't home out of my 25 leads. Well, I was only able to make 8 stops yesterday. 2 people weren't home. So I put them back in my, nobody was home, that is. I put them back in my lead file for this week, and I'll try again. So I'll try a minimum of 2 times stopping at that house and always leaving a note. Think of it like the UPS driver. They stop by the house, they're not home, they leave a note. We will try again tomorrow between 4 and 6. They leave another note. They try again, final attempt. I'm basically doing the same thing. During that week, I've got 50 attempts, 10 a day, to call on those 25 leads. But again, I'm not going to call on all of them because all of them won't be home. Any questions before the presentation itself? How are we doing on time, Mr. Dave?
Hello?
Dave, you awake?
Hello?
Okay.
I'm not Dave. I want to ask you a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you say you organize the leads by zip code, now,
Yes.
I worked for the post office for 9 years, and they make about 300 stops in a day. But when you just do the zip codes, don't you want to do the cities too? I'm talking about for me because that's a good idea. But some zip codes intersect. I live in LA too, so you know that.
Right.
90650 is going to be different from 90256 and
Yes, sir.
various ones. So
Right.
do you organize it and say 90650 Norwalk, 90520, or whether it's Torrance or
Right.
South Bay? Do you categorize it by the city and the zip code, or do you just use the zip code?
Good question, sir. And as you know, living in LA, one city can have 2 or 3 zip codes. What I would do is that I do it by the 5-digit zip codes. So I would pull out, let's use Torrance since you use that, sir. I would pull out Torrance and say, okay, what zip codes do I want to work in Torrance? You don't want to work, and let's say for those who are up in Fresno, you don't want to do, when you order leads, you don't want to do the entire city. You want to do the zip codes where there's the middle to lower income people. So Torrance, for the gentleman on the phone, I wouldn't do Palos Verdes. I wouldn't do even maybe the major area Torrance because, again, that's higher in incomes. What you're looking for out there, ladies and gentlemen, is you're looking for people who are making $50,000 or less. Now, for those who are in other parts of not LA, you might even want to do $40,000 or less. So when you put in your lead order, for whether you're using Lincoln Heritage or some outside firm, they're going to ask you, what age group? I do 55 to 80. 55 to 80. Incomes, 50,000 to 15,000. For some of you that are not in LA, Orange County, I would say 40,000 to 15,000. And then you give them the 5-digit zips. So you're going to need to do your homework. It can easily be done in a few hours. You need to do your homework to find out what areas have those type of people. Now, I'm cutting it off at 15,000. I myself don't want to go to subsidized housing or projects. Those people mean well. They've had a hard life. But even trying to get them to do a $25 a month Bank-O-Matic, good luck. So I don't go to projects, okay? Let the debit companies out there, the men and women who still go door to door, let them serve that market. I want what I call Johnny Lunch Bucket. The man or woman, he was a mechanic for 40 years, or he was a gardener. They had his own business. Whatever the case may be, I'm looking for a good old Johnny Lunch Bucket and his wife, 55 to 80. Maybe they live in a little tract home. They lived there for 30 years. They love their kids, they raise them, and they still live in that little tract home or that farm out there in Porterville or that ranch out there in Hanford. Those are the people I'm looking for. So I do it by 5-digit zips, and their ages 55 to 80, and incomes 50,000 down to 15, or for others of you out there, 40 to 15. So I might have to drive a little further. Like, again, I'm working the Antelope Valley right now because there's a lot of people like that in that area. For those of you in L.A., I would suggest the Downey, the Norwalk, the Cudahy, the Bell Gardens area. I wouldn't do Torrance, but I would do North Long Beach, Carson, Dominguez Hills. For those in L.A. South Central, I would do Westchester, a little marginal. I would do Inglewood, Compton, South L.A. with those income brackets, though. So when you're doing the 15,000 minimum, you're cutting out most of the time the projects, okay? And, of course, and I mentioned those that live in the Central Valley, those various farm towns that I talked about. Those in the San Fernando Valley, you're rather limited to Reseda, Panorama City, Sepulveda, Van Nuys, some North Hollywood. You don't do Encino, you don't do Tarzana, you don't do Woodland Hills. For those up in Ventura, I would do the Oxnard area, Somas, Fillmore, Santa Paula, that area out along there. Because what we're doing, and for those who've read my articles, you're selling to the masses, not the classes. But let me reiterate, you will find more rewards here than any others that you may have sold to. These people so appreciate what you're doing. And speaking of articles, go to the Life Insurance Selling website. Go to my name. When you pull up one of my articles, go to my name, and it'll come up with the, 4 to 6 articles I've written. Print those out, ladies and gentlemen. Study them over and over and over again. I don't care if you mark on it, tear it up, whatever, but study them. And if you really master all those articles I've written, you'll have at least a AA degree in final expense selling. I wish there was something like out there when I started 15 years ago. I just put this together by trial and error. So study those articles right and left. Some of them even talk about my presentation in the home, and we'll get to that in a moment. Thank you, sir, for that good question. Other questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Mr. Alan Benedict, what mail houses do you use for?
I'm sorry, what?
What mail houses do you use for?
Well, a couple. There's about a half a dozen out there, and that is, I would suggest, and I'm not really allowed to say any by name because there's so many out there. But what I would suggest is when you go to lifeinsuranceselling.com, you'll see various companies out there. Now I can mention names. You've got Main Street Power Mail out of Indiana. Again, Main Street Power Mail. You got Lead Strategies out of New York. You got Kramer Marketing out of Texas. You got, of course, Lincoln Heritage has their program. You can punch in, you can Google, life insurance lead houses. Again, life insurance lead houses. Now, if you order leads, and I'm strongly suggesting you invest in your career, when you order leads, they're going to have sample final expense pieces. They all say the same thing. They'll say something like, do you know Social Security only pays $255 toward your funeral costs if you even qualify for that? You now qualify for a new $10,000 policy, blah, 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 blah. The script, the copy is okay. What I would suggest you ask, though, is for them to put in for the date of birth. They're going to have these sample lead pieces on the website, and you pick which one you want. Any of them are going to be okay, but I'm going to suggest you ask for you order the one that asks for their date of birth. So Mr. Jones, you got to put down, my birthday is June the 27th, 1929. I know some lead places only have them put down their age. That's not bad, so they'll put down their age 71. I prefer they put down their date of birth. because I may be following up on that lead 5 years from now. That date of birth hasn't changed. Also, when I need to close for them to purchase this plan, if it's in their best interest, I know I can use the age close. And for those who may not know what that is, most companies will say you need to enroll in the plan your current age. So if Mr. Jones is having a birthday in a month, I can say, why don't we get you at the lower rate now before your next age? Some companies even go within 3 months or 6 months of their next age change. So I have that leverage when I'm in the home when I know their age before I even walk up to the door. So I'll mention those: Main Street Power Mail out of Indiana, Kramer Marketing out of Texas, Lead Strategies out of New York, and there are probably at least a half a dozen or more. And they have all kinds of leads: IRAs, health insurance, Medicare subs. But you want to look on their website for their their final expense lead. They'll have between 1 to 3 different samples. Any of them will be okay, just as long as they write down, I suggest, their date of birth, and they have to sign their name. I prefer, by the way, I'm doing this now, I prefer not them putting in their phone number, because that stops a lot of people from sending a card in. They'll say, they would have said, they want my phone number, I don't want to put it down. I don't want them to put it down anyways, because I'm going to call on them. If they did say when I walk up to the door, how come you call? I'll say, I'm sorry, we don't have the phone number. So that gives me another something to say at the door.
Alan, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when you go to the door, what do you think is the best strategy for them to kind of, first of all, open the door? They're looking through that little glass, the little lens, and they're knocking on the door and go, this guy looks like a, and again, dressing down that you're saying works because you look like a maintenance guy, you look like a, so, but once they open the door, what is the best posture or what's the best way for them to relax and actually invite you in?
Good question, Dave. And by the way, y'all might, when you do get together, might want to do some role playing here. Good question. All right. First of all, why do I not dress up? Because one, it's hot during the summer. Two, I don't want them to think that I'm from a religious groups out there, wearing white shirts and black ties and riding a bicycle. No offense to anyone. I want them to say, there's somebody here and looks like they have information. So I go up to the door and don't ring the doorbell. First of all, some of these people, seniors, like me, I have a hearing impairment. So I knock on the door. And then I step back, maybe down, if it has a couple steps, I step back down to 1 step. As some of you may have seen my picture, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'1". So I don't want to be intimidating to the person coming to the door. So I knock on the door, and then I step back down 1 step or step back a few feet. Well, if they look in the glass, they're going to see me with a presentation book or a notebook, and they're going to see me with a clipboard. So I have their curiosity. They may say through the door, who are you? Alan Benedict, I have the information you requested. Yeah, some of them won't open the door, but again, it's a numbers game. So that's what I do at a house. By the way, if you pull up to a house and there's a fence out in front and a gate, first of all, shake the gate, ladies and gentlemen, to see if you got any Rottweilers, pit bulldogs coming around the backyard. Shake the gate and wait. Now, assuming there's no dogs coming, then open the gate and walk right on up, just like the UPS driver would. So at the house, shake the gate. Also see what kind of a car is in the driveway. All right, maybe take a look at, see if it's a new car, a not too old used car, or what. Kind of gives you an idea what kind of income they may have, even though you're calling on $40,000 or less per se. And you can also maybe even feel the front of the car to see if it's warm, like they just got home. By the way, if you're coming up to the house in the car and they're just pulling in, don't walk up then while they're taking groceries into the house. Let them get in there. Let them get settled down. Let them go to the bathroom. Then come up and knock on the door. Because what often happens, if they're out in the garage unloading groceries, their excuse will be, I don't have time right now. These are all just little techniques that you'll develop, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds complicated. It'll come with ease. The more you do it, the more relaxed you'll get. Okay? Now, if it's an apartment complex, listen carefully, folks. If it's an apartment complex or a townhouse complex or condos, I never buzz to the intercom. Never, never, never. I wait till someone is coming out the door. Now, you have to be creative here. Now, there's several ways I do this. I carry with me like a FedEx envelope box or a post office express box. So I go up to the door or near the door, and I pull out my cell phone like I'm talking to someone, and I have that FedEx box on top of my clipboard. Somebody will be walking out, and as I'm still imitating that I'm talking to someone, I'll walk right on in. Do not use the intercom. You will get shut down. The other technique I use is I wait until the security gate opens, somebody's coming out, then I pull in. I do this for mobile home parks, apartments, condos, townhouses, whatever that has a security system. So when someone's pulling out, I pull in. Then I park my car in visitor parking, and then I walk on up. Now, I hope you find this somewhat entertaining. Have a newspaper or a book in the car once you get into the parking lot. Because what could have happened occasionally when you're ready to leave, you can't get out. Because some security systems, not many, will only be activated by someone else going out that has a device. So I just sit in my car and read my newspaper until someone's coming in or going out. Then I go back out. But that's how I handle multiple complexes. I don't use the buzzer at all. Now, what do I do? And I know, David, we're at the hour limit here. You tell me what you like. I've got a little more time left. Now, what do we do once we get in the house? And again, it sounds complicated, but the more you do it, the easier it'll get, folks. I do a lot of salsa dancing. At first, it was complicated, this old gringo. Now it's a piece of cake for me, if any of you that read my articles and so forth about my passion for dancing. So the more you do it, the easier it'll get. Now, here are some things you need to have when you go to these homes. As I mentioned at the beginning of this conference call, you need to go around to the local funeral homes and get their current price list. Federal law, not state law, federal law of 1984. The funeral home must give you a price list upon request. They can't ask you, they can't make it a requirement. Who is it for? Why do you need it? How much do you want to spend? They can ask you, is there any questions I can answer for you? But they have to give you a price list. It's called a GPL, General Price List, GPL. It'll be typed at the top. So you walk into your local funeral homes and get their current prices, and you need to do this about every 6 months. Get their price list. And especially go to the funeral homes in your area that are high-end prices. The best one out there, and they will be in your areas for all of you that are calling or on the phone from around the state in Arizona. You want to make sure you go to the funeral homes that has out on their sign, Dignity Memorial. Dignity Memorial is the name of the largest funeral home company in America called Service Corporation International, SCI. They're out of Waco, Texas. Houston, Texas. They're out of Houston, Texas. They do a fine job, but because they're so large and so much management involved, the prices have to be higher. Plus, they make it nice for you and I. They put together packages. So like they'll say the deluxe package for Grandpa, $14,000. The standard package, $10,000. The economy package, $7,000. So instead of going to a lot of details about funeral planning, you got the package prices right in front of you when you're showing the couple, let's say you're talking to a husband and wife, about the high cost of passing away. So go to your local funeral homes, get the prices, get these GPLs, they're called, and carry them with you. The industry calls our product final expense. Here's why they came up with the name. Because, yes, there are people out there who will buy these products not for burial insurance. They have already got a plan. But they want to give it as a little gift to their children. Or they want to have a little insurance to give to their grandchildren. Or they want to have some insurance to cover the cost of flying to the funeral. And I know all those other reasons, but I don't really go there. I just use burial cost. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, do you have any idea the high cost of dying today? And let them answer the question. Many of them will already know. Or they'll lowball it. They'll think it's so much less. Then you pull out a list of the local funeral homes in their area. And then you educate them about the current cost. Now, we'll talk about cremation in a moment.
Alan, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us again the email or the website where we can get your articles?
Oh, sure. Go to, www.lifeinsuranceselling.com. Again, ladies and gentlemen, www.lifeinsuranceselling.com. Go to, a couple ways you could do this. You could type in my name, and it's spelled A-L-A-N, Alan's A-L-A-N, Benedict, like the Pope, not related, B-E-N-E-D-I-C-T, and those 4 to 6 articles I've written will come up.
Very good.
Print those out. I'm going to give you another website. It's called producersweb.com. Again, producersweb.com. There is also a conference audio interview that I did with the editor going into my system that I'm explaining at this time. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm covering a lot of material. I'd rather cover a lot and you get bits and pieces than not enough. So those two websites, producersweb.com and also lifeinsuranceselling.com.
Thank you very much, Alan.
You're quite welcome. I'm honored, and thank you. So to summarize, the last thing here, and then questions and answers, and that is, get the prices of the funeral homes in your area. Also, go to the cemeteries in your area. They don't have to give you a price list, but if you pressure them enough, use some reason that you're getting quotes about cemetery properties in your area, and they'll write it down for you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people out there think they got a plot already at the local cemetery. They think it's covered. No, they still got the funeral. Or they got the funeral provided, which they don't, but they got to pay the cemetery. So when a family goes into a funeral home, like today, ladies and gentlemen, in L.A. County, 169 people die every day in L.A. County. We know what the death rate is in every county. So in L.A. County, 169 people on average, give or take a couple, die every day in L.A. County. Well, 70% of people out there we know never pre-plan and have no insurance. 70% of the people out there who pass away every day has never pre-planned and has no insurance. Well, later today and tomorrow, the funeral directors like myself, when I used to work in a funeral home, would make the appointment for the family to come into the funeral home to make arrangements. They come into the funeral home. I do the arrangements for them. We plan out some type of a funeral service. Then I got to educate them. Now you need to go to the cemetery of your choice. And they'll always say, you mean it's not included? I'm afraid it's not. So you need to go to Forest Lawn, Rose Hill, San Fernando Catholic Cemetery, and make arrangements with them for the cemetery. In L.A. County, I can't speak for the rest of the state, though it's probably higher. L.A. County, the average funeral, it's a little lower than most areas. It's around $6,000 in L.A. County, and then another $2,000 to $4,000 for the cemetery plot. Some of you people that live in the more remote areas, the prices are even higher. And people find this surprising. Various parts of the country, it's even higher. You would think the South would be less for funeral costs. It's another 30% higher than it is out here in California. Because some of those cultures out there really believe in big funerals. So, have the prices of cemeteries in your area and of the funeral homes. By the way, some of you will be calling on veterans like myself. Veterans think the VA will pay for everything. They only give them a free plot at a national cemetery. For those of you in the Fresno area, that would be the San Joaquin Valley one out there off the 5 freeway, and we have a new one in Bakersfield National Cemetery, and there's one up in Davis. And now here in L.A., the only one we have available in L.A. area is Riverside National. But the family still has to pay for the funeral cost. Finally, on cremation, you still will show them from the GPL, from the funeral home, what they're charging for cremation. Cremations at a funeral home will run somewhere $2,000 and on up. If they insist on a cremation plan,
Hello? Hello? If they insist on the cremation plan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Alan, can you repeat the last part of the cremation? I had an interference here.
That's all right. Cremation at funeral homes themselves, they're going to charge, most of them are going to charge $2,000 and up. Here's what a funeral home would like the cremation family to do. The funeral home does not want the family to do direct cremation like that Neptune Society, or like you'll see advertised in a paper. Cremation, $8.99. Most of those ads are what we call in the business world loss leaders. They know that for every 5 families that takes the bait of an $899 cremation that's advertised, because it has to be advertised by a funeral home, they know that out of every 5 families that takes the bait of an $8.99 cremation, when they come into the funeral home, 4 of the 5 families will be able to be upsold to a memorial service. Yeah, there will be that one family will say, Dad only wanted cremation, simple, direct, and nothing else. We're paying $8.99 or else. All right. So yes, they'll do the cremation. But the other 4 families will do a memorial service there. A memorial service, folks, means they have a traditional service, but the casket is not there. The ashes, the urn may be there, it may not be there. For those of the Catholic faith, the Catholic Church likes to have the saying of the Mass with the ashes there or the body there. Well, now you just went from a direct cremation cost, let's say $8.99, up to $2,000. But now the funeral home is going to say, wouldn't you like to have some family members to say their goodbyes and see their grandma one more time? And we will provide a viewing. Well, now you just tacked on another $1,000. Well, we have a choice, they will say. You can either purchase a cremation casket, and yes, all funeral homes will have a casket for cremation they can buy, and they can run from $800 all the way up to $3,000, or they'll have a rental casket. All funeral homes now have a rental casket program. So they'll say, we'll have a traditional viewing first, we'll have a traditional service, but instead of us all going to the cemetery, the service will conclude here, and it'll be over. And then what the funeral directors will do, ladies and gentlemen, they'll take the person out of the rental casket, take them down to the crematory, and the following day or two, the family will come in and pick up the ashes. So, even if they say they want cremation, educate them what's involved. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not salespeople. We are educators. And the more you educate the family in the home, the less you have to close. Remember a seesaw. The more one side of the seesaw is up, the left side of the seesaw is up. The more you educate the couples and the widows and widowers, the less you have to ask for the order. But the less you educate them, the harder you got to close. The only success you're going to have in this niche is you educate the people about the high cost of dying, and it shouldn't take you no more than a couple of hours of gathering the information from the local funeral homes and also reading what you can about these general price lists, and you can educate yourself. And Heritage has a wonderful booklet they have out there in training program on what final expense is all about. All right, David, I'm about tuckered out here. Any more questions you all have, folks?
No, just...
Yeah, the one call... Hello?
Yes?
Hello? The one call closed. You focused on that briefly.
All right.
You can elaborate.
All right. The one call closed. Ladies and gentlemen, you shouldn't have any feedbacks. Feedbacks meaning, we like what you said, we like what you said, Alan. Get back with us in a few days. I don't come back. Now let me qualify that. I will, but it will be a year from now. I'll put them in my lead box by zip code. I'll write down on either the back of the lead card, but what I like to do is staple my lead cards to a 5x7 card. So again, I staple, after I'm done with that interview, I staple that card to a 5x7 card, and I make my notes on that. Now, of course, when I go up and follow up on that house a year or two later, I don't keep that 5x7 notes to myself on it. You don't want the people taking the rubber bands off and reading those notes. That's none of their business. I need to make the note to remember what I did. So, I'll say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, so what do I do when I'm in the home? And again, the more I educate it, the less I have to close. Now, how do you educate? You educate them about the high price of dying. You educate them on that. You educate them upon the cemetery cost. Even if they have a cemetery plot, they still haven't covered the funeral cost. Now you tell them there's 3 ways to pay the funeral home. And please make a note of this, ladies and gentlemen. There's 3 ways to pay the funeral home. Really, there's 4. Let's say 4. Number 1, you got enough money in your savings account. Well, you and I know they don't, because you're mailing to low-income people. They're not going to have $20,000 in the bank for both mom and dad, and always include both of them, because the average spouse lives 8 years later than the first spouse. So you want to include both of them. So let's say it comes to $9,000 per person. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we're looking at around $18,000. Let's round it off to $20,000 total. How are you going to pay the local funeral home? 1, you have the money in the bank. And of course, they're going to squirm in their seats, and they know they don't. Number 2, your kids have the money, and they won't have that. By the way, whenever they use the objection, let me talk to my kids. This is important to know. And that will be one of the few objections you'll get. You always say, don't do that to your kids. No kids want to hear about their mom or dad's death. Again, don't do, and sometimes you may have to raise your voice. Don't do that to your kids. No children want to hear about their mom and dad's death. And, of course, they're going to do is shake their head in agreement. Then the next thing you say, almost all kids say the same thing when that comes up. Mom or Dad, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And, of course, it never does. Most of the people out there you talk to, though, ladies and gentlemen, they'll know their kids are not in a position. In fact, many of them are still sponging off their mom and dad. So, the 4 ways to pay for it. You've got the money in the bank. Your kids will pay for it. Or charity. You know, we all seen people out there on street corners or in front of stores, and there are some neighborhoods where people even go door to door asking for money to bury their mom or dad. Or you can have a burial plan. Now, notice I didn't say insurance, or a burial plan, or I will say burial insurance. I won't say life insurance. And you quote the amount. Keep your premiums, ladies and gentlemen. You'll read all this in these articles I've written. Keep your premiums around $50 a month. You'll get a few more, but keep them around $50. This is not a benefit-driven product. They all want $20,000 coverage each. It is a premium-driven. If you go much more than $50, you're going to start having some lapses. They're not going to be able to keep the policy in force. I'd rather them have a $5,000 policy each than a $20,000 each and only keep it for a few months. Something's better than nothing. There's an old saying in the $1 Million Round Table. What's the best insurance to have when you pass away? The one that's in force. Here are your objections. And then I'll come back to that close. Here's your objections. You're going to only have a few. One is we've got to talk to our kids. I just shared with you how to handle that. Don't do that. The kids don't want to hear about it. Number 2, well, we'll get back with you. Well, I would love to, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but you can see all these other people I've got to see. It'll be quite a while till I'm able to be back in your area again. Why don't we just do it now and see if you qualify and get approved? And remember, you're not going to close them all. If you close them all, you're not seeing enough people. Remember the 12 homes I'm in a week? I'm only selling, if I'm at 50%, I'm only selling half. Okay? So a second objection will be, well, get back with me in a week or two. I've got to think about it. Now, what I say there is I got to see all these other people to see. Next week I'll be in and use another city. This week I'm in Fresno. Next week I'll be in Porterville. But then I also handle that objection. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you've already been thinking about it. You and I have, at our age, you've already been to funerals. And one of the things that are in the back of people's minds at every funeral is, who's paying for this funeral? That is, sir, such a nice casket. Or, if it's not a nice casket, if it's just a cloth, and you folks, some of you have been to those funerals, the cheapest casket is a cloth-covered flat top. Very undignified. But you know the people in the audience are saying, boy, this must have been tough. That's all they could afford. So they're thinking that. So you're going to say, I know you've been to funerals just like me, and one of the things we think about is, who's paying for this funeral? Maybe go ahead and process your application to see if you get approved. The third, so your objection is, I got to talk to the kids. We got to think about it. Another objection will be, well, I've got life insurance from work. And like the gentleman said, he used to work for the post office. Some people retire from other jobs, and they go into final expenses of career. Mr. and Mr. Jones, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You got $1 million worth of life insurance out there. Let that be for the family for other expenses. This pays the funeral home to cover the burial cost. Doesn't matter what your other insurance is. And even if you do have insurance at work, most of them decrease or they're even canceled. And it'll tell you, the Veterans Affairs does not pay for funerals. They don't pay for cremation. But they, his question, ladies and gentlemen, is how long is the presentation? Around 20 minutes. In my presentation book, I will have copies of the local GPLs. I will also have local obituaries, particularly those people who have died unexpectedly. Every week there's auto accidents and sudden heart attacks, things of that nature. Talk about some celebrities like John Ritter, heart attack at 58, Patrick Swayze, cancer at 56, things like that. You want to emphasize to them, we never know. So, GPLs, some obituaries, and of course, whatever your company provides with you, the highlight of your plan. Premiums never go up, benefit never goes down, non-cancelable, things of that nature. So about 20 minutes, always at the kitchen table. I try not, and I said always, sometimes I'm forced to sit on a couch, which I hate, but I try to get to the kitchen table. Why? I want to be at the kitchen table so I can look at them, and I like to have them facing me, not facing each other. And many people have their medicines on the kitchen table. Another close is, research what it is in this county. And what they should have is a list of all the funeral homes and how many funerals, or they're called dispositions. Not everybody does a funeral. How many dispositions that each funeral home is doing. But in L.A. County, it would be the Department of Health, but I would think that would be your best source there. It may even be on the website. It's public information, so you could probably Google that, sir. Deaths for Fresno County, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? It's a real eye-opener. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real eye-opener. The death rate in America is 0.009. So like 1%. So that kind of gives you, we average about 2.7 million deaths a year in the United States. But what's our population? 300. I've been in the business long enough, and I know a winner when I see one, and David is a winner, and he's going to go far. So email him your questions, and he can contact me, and I'll answer them for you. Dress code again, casual slack, kind of like if you're going to go out to dinner on a Tuesday night. Casual slack, casual shirt, and that's it, okay? Just look very casual, like you're going out to a nice dinner in the evening. Let me summarize, folks, so let me wrap it up, because I have a 12 o'clock with a gentleman who wants to learn this business, and you're going to take me out to lunch, and I'm going to teach him some things, and I need a break here. Now, let me summarize, folks. It's a wonderful niche. Very few people are in it who stick within it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Just get in your car every day with your leads. Order lots of leads by the demographics I gave you. That'll also be on the website. I told you about how to download all these articles. Follow that. Stick with it, and the numbers will work for themselves. The final thing, financially. Financially, if you got 25 leads at all times you're working, you're going to make you should make between $2,000 to $5,000 a week if you're out there working. You can have a bad day. You can even have a bad week, but you can't have a bad month if you're working the numbers. It is that simple. And what's nice about, Lincoln Heritage, you send in your application, and before you know, it's already the money's put into your checking account to provide a nice livelihood. That's number one. Plus, renewals are nice, too. Number two, remember, folks, it is compassion, not commission. Go out and serve these families. They will appreciate you so very much, and you'll feel real good when you're able to put your head down at night to say, I helped so many families this week. Even if they didn't buy, you educated them about the high cost of passing away, and you'll have another chance to help them in the future, but you'll feel real good about yourself. David, thank you so very much. Why don't you and I, David, talk maybe later today or tomorrow? And again, folks, thank you for your time. I am honored to be of service here. Okay?
Thank you, Alan. You have a great day.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.